الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستهديه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. إنه من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, O you who believe, have taqwa in Allah and fear Him as He should be feared, and die not except in a state of Islam. Now today, inshallah, for the topic of today's khutbah, we will be sticking of the theme that we were going over last week, which is the topics of the importance of our parents and our relationship with our parents. Specifically, we'll be going over some of the sacrifices that our parents make for us. And I'm sure many of us, we've heard of this topic before. Maybe by our parents themselves, they like to remind us of it. But it's because it's true. It's the sacrifices our parents have made for us. They are things that we should always keep in mind and should never forget. And unfortunately, we do have that habit of forgetting them. And our parents, throughout our entire lives, they've made many different sacrifices for us in many different ways, shapes, and forms, whether they be big sacrifices or small sacrifices. From the moment we're born, our parents, their sole objective in life, obviously, to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but it's not just about serving their own needs. They're not just worrying about, okay, what am I going to eat today? What am I going to do? This, that. Once you're born, your parents' objective is worrying about you, all your needs, your health needs, your shelter, your food, all these things that you need. Your parents are in charge of that, and that's their sole focus. So that in and of itself, it's a very big burden that our parents are burdened with, just simply for us existing, and especially when we're young, newborns, for example, we're helpless. We can't do anything by ourselves. We need our parents, and we couldn't really remember these things that they did for us, but they did do them nonetheless. And I'm sure those parents who are here, or anyone who's had a young sibling, they know the difficulties of raising a newborn or raising children in general. It's not an easy thing to do, which is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala stresses the importance of respecting and treating and obeying the parents properly. Now, in regards to the sacrifices they make, there are many, but today I'd like to go through a few. For example, the sacrifices of their money, their health even, and their time. Now, the first one is their sacrifice of money. For example, all the things that we own, where we live, the roof over our heads, who pays for these things? Especially when you're at a young age. Maybe when you're older, you might have a job, but up until that point, up until you're older and you have a career and all these things, your parents are supplying everything that you need. All your basic needs, your food, water, shelter, your clothes, and even that's just like the basic needs. Alhamdulillah, all of our parents, they also get us the extra things that we want, right? Our gaming consoles, our phones, our shoes, all these nice things that we like, and we always ask our parents for, they oblige and they do them for us. Obviously with limits, because they want to show us that you can't just have everything, right? But they want to make us happy. Their goal is to please our interests and obviously raise us in a way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with. So you have all these things that they pay for us, right? And we don't take into account all the extra things that they might sacrifice on, because to buy these things, money doesn't just come from the sky. This is their money, they've worked for it, and they have to divide that kind of between you and, let's say, your siblings. Overall, essentially, our parents, they have this strong desire to sacrifice their money for us. For example, a personal example of mine is that my sister and I, for our entire lives, from pre-K to 12th grade, we've been going to an Islamic school. And Islamic schools are private schools, so they're not free. And regardless of this, my parents still decided that the money they would be putting towards the Islamic school, us being raised in an Islamic environment and learning Islamic knowledge in our early years, that was more valuable than, let's say, getting a newer, nicer car or nicer clothes or a new house even, So these things, they valued our basically the way we were raised, and in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how He wants us to be raised. They sacrificed their pleasures for the sake of us having that proper Islamic environment to grow up in. And that's just a personal example, and I'm sure many of us have other examples like that as well. And the next example is the example of their health. Now this one, it might not be as extreme in some cases, but regardless, we've all had those days where we've seen mama or baba come home, after a long day of work, very tired and exhausted and in pain, but they still make that effort to greet you, to smile, to ask you how your day was going, and all these things, right? So, and an example of sort of, but with the health, sort of the health aspect of it, is our mothers. When they give birth to us, childbirth is one of, even on a ranking basis, it's one of the most painful and most difficult things any human can experience. And there's a story of one of the companions of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, by the name of Abdullah ibn Umar. So Abdullah ibn Umar, there was this Yemeni man who was making Hajj with his mother on his back. Like at this point, his mother was older and he wanted to make Hajj with her. And keep in mind, this is at the time of the Prophet. They didn't have planes and all this stuff. To make Hajj, it was a month long. Months. It took months to do these things. So this Yemeni man, he had his mother on his back, and he conducted the whole Hajj process with his mother on his back, from Yemen all the way to Mecca, doing all the rituals, making tawaf around the Kaaba. He was doing that all with his mother on his back. And then he asked Abdullah ibn Umar. He said, "Oh, Ibn Umar, have I repaid my mother for, have I paid back her what I owed her for all the things she's done for me?" And he said, "No." He said, "You haven't even paid back one contraction, like one pang of childbirth, right?" So imagine all this that he's done. And keep in mind, he noted that the length of the trip was longer than the pregnancy. Like this was months. It took him months to do this. But even this, regardless of this, he said, "No, you haven't even repaid her for one contraction of childbirth." So imagine that he's done all of this, but it doesn't even compare to one moment of pain that she suffered. And you'll see a lot of the times Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet ﷺ, they place a heavy emphasis on our mothers especially. In the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, a man once asked him, he said, "Who deserves my best treatment?" Obviously after him and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he said, "Your mother." Then he said, "Who next?" "Your mother." "Who next?" "Your mother." "Then your father." So he said this, this just shows how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet ﷺ, they put such an emphasis on the treatment of our parents and how they are deserving of our respect and our obedience. Whether we might like it or not, sometimes I understand parents aren't always perfect. They make mistakes just like we make mistakes. We're not perfect. However, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He still reminds us to treat them with respect. And even like I said, as long as they're not telling you to do something that's disobeying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you obey them and you do your best to do so. And even when they are telling you, unlikely, but even when they are telling you to disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you oppose them respectfully. You don't yell at them and try to harm them. There's certain lines of respect that you have to keep with your parents. And another sacrifice is the sacrifice of their time, right? The sacrifice of time might be the most important one, because that's really the one that encompasses all the sacrifices they make. They sacrifice their time when raising you, when they come home from work and if they see you're struggling with your homework, for example. They could go to sleep and just you deal with it. But no, they take the time out of their day to help you, to ask you what's wrong, to help you go through your problems. all these things. And another personal example, which is similar to the Islamic school example, is that when my parents, the Islamic school I went to was very far. It was like 40 minutes to an hour long every day, going and back. And my mom would do this every morning and basically hours of driving. And sometimes I would ask her, I'd be like, why, Mama, we could save a lot more money, a lot more time if I just go to public school. It's like 5 minutes away. It's no money. It costs nothing. Like, why not just do that? And she would always remind us. They'd always remind us that, like I said, our Islamic knowledge and us being good Muslims and being raised in a good Muslim environment, that's more important than these material things. So when your parents, take you to Quran class or take you to the masjid or take you to a halaqah, don't think of it as they just want to, they want to annoy you. They don't want you to have fun. They're doing it solely for the sake of, they're sacrificing their time. What makes you think your parent wants to drive to the masjid and just wait for you or pay for your classes or something like that, right? They're doing these things out of your best interest. They want you to be closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there are so many more examples that we could think of. وَأَقُولِ قَوْلِي هَذَا وَأَسْتَغْفِرُ اللَّهِ وَلَكُمْ. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. Now, as we were just talking about the mercy and the sacrifices our parents make, it's important to also look at who kind of guides them to make these sacrifices, who guides them to have this mercy towards us, which is ultimately Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Prophet ﷺ, he tells us, he explains Allah's mercy in a very interesting way. He describes that Allah's mercy is in 100 parts, or think of it as 100%, right? 1% or one part of those 100 parts is the mercy that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted us in this dunya. All the mercy that our parents have, all the mercy around the world of other families amongst each other, even the mercy amongst animals. All of this is just 1% of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy. And He saved the other 99 parts and the other 99% for when we need it later, obviously in the Day of Judgment, right? So it's just to show that obviously we see the mercy of our parents. Allah is just reminding us that even though our parents are so merciful and so loving towards us, always remember who is the most merciful and who we're doing it for, who we're pleasing our parents for, who our parents are taking care of us for, right? Our parents also have an obligation of taking care of us and of being good parents, and they're trying to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're all working towards that same goal. And there's a famous dua in the Quran that we should all, it's a very short dua that I recommend us all to keep in mind. And it's a dua we make for our parents. Basically, we say, رَبِّ ارْحَمْهُمَا كَمَا رَبَّيَانِي صَغِيرًا, which means along the lines of, oh my Lord, have mercy on my parents the same way they brought me up and they raised me when I was young. So it's a very small and short dua, but it's something that we should always keep in mind and remind ourselves to have, because like I said, all of us are in need of Allah's mercy, right? We have to understand, we have to make those sacrifices sometimes for our parents. We have to give back, whether it means sacrificing your time, playing that extra FIFA match, go help your mom take out the groceries, right? Go help your mom with the garbage, the dishes, whatever chores she might ask you to do, or your father might ask you to do, help them with it. It's okay. You should be willing to make these small sacrifices when they've made so many more greater sacrifices. And with that, I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to have mercy on all of our parents. I ask Allah to reward our parents for the sacrifices they made. I ask Allah to make us of those who are thankful and obedient to our parents. Allahumma aghfir lana, warhamna, wa'afina wa'afu anna, wa tajawaz an sayyi'atina. Allahumma inna nas'aluka ridaka wal jannah, wa na'udhu bika min adhab al-qabr. Allahumma inna dhalamna anfusana, wa illam taghfir lana lanakunanna min al-khasirin. Allahumma la taj'alna min al-khasirin. اللهم لا تجعلنا من الخاسرين. اللهم اجعلنا من المحسنين ومن المتقين ومن الشاكرين ومن عبادك الصالحين. وصل اللهم وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم وأقم الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.